What is up? Today we're talking about the secret workflow the secret workflow hack to eliminate writer's block forever. I know it's a big claim, but it's super simple. So in the next 10 minutes, I'll show you a repeatable technique that will eliminate writer's block and perfectionism forever and remove the need for inspiration or motivation in order for you to make amazing music. Hey, yo, it's Alex from Metamind Music. I'm a musician and certified audio engineer here to help you finish music that you're proud of. I help music artists compose, produce, and mix their own professional sounding tracks by using a repeatable creative process. And in every video, my goal is that you're going to get some actionable advice that you can immediately implement to help you level up your music as a music creator. Okay. So in the next 10 minutes, we're going to go over this workflow hack. It's super simple, but it's super effective so that you can eliminate writer's block, perfectionism forever. All right. So let's get it. So the first thing that I want to talk about is what even is writer's block in the first place. Okay. And what writer's block actually is simply fear. Okay. It's facing fear in the creative process, and it could take many forms. It could be expectation. It could be self-judgment, all this kind of stuff. And essentially what it is you're not allowing yourself to make stuff that might be bad, right? You're really having a lot of expectation and pressure on yourself to create something amazing that aligns with what you want to do in your music goal, right? Like maybe you want to finish an awesome EP, an album, you want to finish a pro sounding track, you're inspired by all your artists, and then you have that pressure when you're in the studio, and it's that pressure that creates writer's block. Okay. And this actually comes from the traditional education system, in my opinion, where a lot of the times we're told that there's a right and a wrong way to do things. There's a right and wrong answer. And in a lot of situations, that's totally true. Like if you're a surgeon, right, there's going to be consequences for making the wrong decision. So in that context, it makes sense. But for art and creativity, there isn't necessarily a right or wrong answer. So a lot of the way that we have been trained to approach creative work in general tends to get in the way. Okay. So what we got to do is we need to find ways to allow ourselves to engage with the creative act and detach ourselves from the immediate outcome or the result that we're creating, because that's what writer's block is essentially you're holding yourself back because of an ideal or of an perfected thing that you think you're going to create, which may or may not happen in any session, right? So one of my mentors, Mike Monday, check him out, he's awesome, told me this, and it's amazing. He said that you have to make crap, otherwise you will get constipated, which is a very funny analogy for explaining this. But essentially writing bad music, okay, is part of any healthy creative process. And again, writer's block is simply not allowing yourself to essentially make bad music. Okay. So you have to be okay and accept that you will make stuff that is not great. And that's totally fine. And you have to be okay with that because it's part of the process. I have never met anyone ever who's written something amazing every time that they've been in the studio. That's an unrealistic expectation and just frankly, like impossible. Even master musicians don't hit it every single time. Now, an easy way to break this down is to separate these two types of thinking. Okay, divergent thinking versus convergent thinking. Okay, and you can think of this as editing versus creating. Okay, and when you're editing, you're trying to take something that already exists and refine it, tweak it, edit it to make it better and better and better and better to ultimately reach that perfected state or that finalized track that you're going for, right? But when you're doing more divergent thinking or creating, this is actually a different mode of thinking, right? Where you're not actually solving a problem to get to a specific outcome, right? You're not trying to edit your ideas. You're not trying to make them better, right? You're just trying to create, right? So it's very important to distinguish those two types of thought. And what I do is I separate them in different stages of my approach so that one session I'll just only be focused on creating. I'm not even going to worry about editing or the quality, which again allows me to make bad music and get to the good music without getting in my own way, eliminating writer's block. And then at a separate stage, I will then look at all this stuff I've created and find what resonates with me and what stands out as being better. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. And I'm going to show you a demo, an example of this in practice. So you can go ahead and see what this does and put into action. So I'm going to go to my screen here. And again, if you want this checklist, just comment down below. I'll give it to you. And essentially this breaks down flow, where this is a great quote that encapsulates this by Albert Einstein. I'm sure you know him. The intuitive mind is a sacred gift, and the rational mind is a faithful servant. We have created a society that honors the servant and has forgotten the gift. Okay, so what is he talking about is the intuitive mind versus the rational mind, right? And we're kind of talking about divergent and convergent thinking, the creator versus the editor, right? And in our day-to-day lives, we're so logic driven, we're so process driven, we run on schedules, time bound processes, A plus B equals C, 1, 2, 3, right? And that's great, but that's not necessarily the same as that intuitive mind, right? So that's what we're trying to get into. And this comes from the wake of what we talked about in another video about calibrate. But in this stage, when you have these calibrated instruments, now your goal is to immerse yourself into your subconscious mind, right? And enter a state of creative flow where ideas just come out of you effortlessly and you're not editing yourself. You're not being like, oh, can I make this better? Oh, this sounds like crap. Is this good enough? You're getting all those questions out of your head so you can just continue to engage with the creative act, okay? And you have to accept that not every idea will be exceptional. Absolutely, right? And you have to be willing to create, like I said, bad music. And action always precedes inspiration. A lot of people I talk to, they say, I need to be inspired to make music. I need to be motivated to make music. But that's actually putting inspiration and motivation as an obstacle that you have to overcome, versus if you just engage with the creative act without needing inspiration or motivation, you will find inspiration and motivation by taking action, right? So it's actually the flip way around, where you don't need to be inspired to take action. You need to take action to get inspired, right? So that helps, again, flow helps you do this because you're not worrying about all of these obstacles and all of these thoughts and all of these editing and making it good or perfect, right? You're just allowing yourself to show up and create music. And I'll show you how powerful that is in just a sec here. So what problems does this solve? Is it solves writer's block, right? Which is, again, it's just fear, not allowing yourself to make something bad, right? All these expectations. Two, it's not allowing ideas to flourish. So a lot of the times we'll create maybe a part or an idea, a riff, and then we'll immediately start trying to, orchestrate it and edit it into something, which is fine. But sometimes that stifles the idea's development. And, maybe you're going somewhere and it didn't need to be refined right away. You can always refine things later, right? And then finally, perfectionism, right? This fear of having to be amazing every time you show up in the studio. I'm not amazing. I'll show you that in just a sec. I don't do something amazing every time in the studio, nor do I expect myself to, right? So if you want to do this, what I would suggest, set a timer to avoid rabbit holes, set up your system to record everything. Okay, so when you're flowing through instruments, record all the output and then have a jam session with your instruments. Okay, so I'm just going to pop on my headphones so we can listen to this, and hopefully you'll be able to hear this too. But I'm going to pop over to my Finder here, and I'm going to show you what happened a while ago now. This is last year, but I had a big life event. Like, I became a father and I moved from the country into the city, and I was moving a whole studio and everything. And I was like, okay, there's no way I'm going to be able to actively continue to work on music if I'm moving my studio. But I'm like, what I can do is flow. I can jam out music. Okay. So in the span of whatever this is, from like August to, September, so about a month or so, I managed to jam out about 80 ideas. Okay. So this is about 2 or 3 a day. Okay. And again, the reason why I can get this amount of volume is because I paid 0% focus on the quality, which is super counterintuitive, right? But I just allowed myself to flow a bunch of stuff out and record the output and export it. And then at a later time, I listened back to this to find if there was anything worth checking out. Now, if you look at these little labels, right? There's red, which has potential, red and green, which is like, okay, this, I like this. And then purple is like, I really like this. And I want you to notice the trend here, right? The first 10 to 15, barely anything, right? Red, 1, 2, 3 reds, maybe some potential there, but 15 days straight, 15 ideas straight of nothing really substantial, right? We could listen to a couple of these. Like, let's check out one that I didn't like here. This guy. was listening back to this, right, kind of off time, meandering chords, wasn't really feeling it, right? And not that great, to be honest, and that's cool. But if I continue, right, let's go to one where maybe there's a red and a green label here. Okay, so the first one happened, almost 2 weeks in. Let's listen to this one. So the audio's tripping out right now. Excuse for the pops. Right, so this again, not that great. It's kind of like a senseless jam. Cool idea. That's probably why it has the green and the red label. It's like, okay, there's a vibe here, right? There's something to start with. And again, this was all made in the heat of the moment. I just jammed this out without thinking. But now let's go ahead to this first purple one. Okay, and this one, in my opinion, this is already a foundation for almost a whole track that I just jammed out. But here's the key thing. It took 2 weeks, or whatever, 14, 15 ideas before getting here. But I didn't work any harder on this idea than I did all the rest. And that's the key here, right? That's the power of this. But let's check this guy out, right? So already I can tell that there's a stronger motif here. Right, the delayed melody. Skip ahead. Right, so there's a groove. It's not perfect, but that's not what I'm going for. I just jammed this out on the spot, right? Then we can skip ahead. All right, so for example, this one that I've called Lioness, very already established, right? Like this is definitely a yes. I'm going to move this forward, and you can tell that it's a lot better than the other ones, right? And that's the power of flow, is like, hey, I didn't really pay too much care or attention to trying to make anything amazing. I just wanted to show up and be consistent, to show up and create music. And then overall, you'll see that here, 3 in a row, right, that are really good that I like. And then over here, a few, one over here, and then again, another dead sprint. So it shows you the trends of how unpredictable the creative process is, in fact, right? So again, getting into a flow state and consistent, right, allows you to workshop multiple ideas and multiple different vibes. And then from curation afterwards, you can identify the best ideas, right? And then from there, I have probably, 10 tracks, 10 ideas here that are way above average the rest. So now when I move my ideas forward, I'm already starting from a very strong place, right? Instead of pressuring myself to create that strong place in any given session. Okay. So again, that's the whole flow stage of this system. If you want the checklist, let me share it again. If you want this thing, just comment down below. Happy to share it with you. And again, a huge part, the big thing to eliminate writer's block is to allow yourself to make music that's not great. Just show up, engage with the creative act, see what happens, because the creative process is inherently uncertain and you cannot predict your results. Okay. So following this kind of workflow will help you show up more consistently and reduce the pressure and expectation when you show up to the studio. Okay. So that's what I got for you today. Hopefully it was helpful, and I will see you